I was so tainted by not having money for so long that I wanted to do whatever it took not to get back to that place. So it got to this crazy point in 2023 where everything fell apart. I went to therapy for 8 months and it didn't help me with it. I lost sight of the purpose. I was so consumed by not losing what I had that I forgot why I was even doing it. It was almost like everything came together at once and my business and my life took off. Like that was the year I went from 300,000 to 3 million in 12 months.
So sick.
Everything blew up. I can hopefully share with somebody to realize if you're feeling this, guess what? You're not alone. Mm-hmm. But we are the creators of these emotions. And I was being a victim of the own emotions that I created myself. Your income is a direct reflection of the type of entrepreneur that you become. And in this episode of the RECEO podcast, it's time to get vulnerable. We're going to be sharing my journey and the evolution that I went through different phases, all of the mistakes that I made so that you can avoid these costly mistakes, not just financially, but also emotionally, physically, and how you can transform your business to get to that 7-figure level by becoming a 7-figure entrepreneur, knowing that you don't achieve your goals, you achieve your standards and your habits. And by the end of this, you will know exactly how to elevate your work ethic, your habits, your standards to achieve the life and the income that you've always wanted. But that starts with me very openly and transparently talking to you and sharing with you where I went wrong and what I did to fix it. All right, dude. So we're back and welcome back to the RECEO podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the personal journey, growing, becoming who you've always wanted to be, something that I've struggled with for years, something that everybody's on the journey to achieve. But this is a really important concept, knowing that your income is a direct reflection of who you become. So I'm excited, dude. What's going on, Pat? How you doing?
We're back, and we got Mike's growly voice back here too.
Dude, recording content all day while being sick, but we're here.
The problem is like, what if this is the best voice for Mike? It's like your new radio voice, and it goes back to being bad.
Yeah, we have to get it done.
No, and this is I'm excited for this one because obviously, with the change in career and the change in all these things I'm going through, this is something that I'm struggling with right now, is like becoming the best version of me to, make more money, be more financially free, and be the person I want to be.
Well, dude, I think it's one of those things where the assumption for most people is that in order to increase your income or in order to achieve a certain financial success, you have to learn all these like tools and tricks and tips and all of these different things. And while there's some validity to that, what I've realized is that who you become as a man or a woman is the limiting factor to all of that, right? We're coming up to the year end, and you know that there's going to be all these people, new year, new me, 2025.
Yeah,
like,
that's me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like this is my year. And it goes back to that thing, like if nothing changes, nothing changes. So many people are going to step into the new year and say, okay, this is the year I'm going to break 6 figures or $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, but they don't change who they actually are as a person. So if you don't change how you operate, who you are, and how you show up, you could say you want to make $1 billion or $100,000. You're going to fall short of both.
So I can't make $1 billion next year?
Might be hard pressed.
Well, it's interesting too, because I've watched you grow so much over the years. Again, we've known each other for a decade or so. I can tell you're changing your year after year, but you've never been like a new year, new me kind of guy. How have you changed when you compare yourself today to the guy you were when you first started in real estate at 24?
It's been a journey. I'm excited to talk about this because I've never really talked about it. And as I was reflecting before we showed up today, I kind of put my journey into 3 different buckets, if you will. and I look at the bucket of my first 3 years, and it seems to be a 3-year stint. 3 seems to be a lucky number for anything in business and entrepreneurship. But, there was that phase of me being a new agent. First 3 years, traditional brokerages, new, broke, didn't know anybody, getting started. So that kind of took me from 2017 to 2020. 2020, I joined EXP, and then I went on a completely different path for the next 3 years. And I'll very vulnerably talk about these paths and what I had to go through. And then it got to 2023, 2024. And I think that's where my journey radically shifted. So if I rewind back to phase 1, brand new agent, 2017 to 2020, it's really interesting because I hear how local agents have talked about me. They see the purple car, but they saw how I showed up. And when I look back, there was honestly a bit of ego associated with my journey. And I can reflect and say that that's not who I am today. And I can also be somewhat understanding of why people thought I had some level of ego in my first 3 years of real estate.
For sure.
Because, and I want people to understand why that's actually somewhat important, because I was coming into real estate, bullied out of high school. I had no self-confidence. I had no self-esteem. And I'm getting into this industry where you have to fend for yourself. And to me, as that naturally born introverted person, the only way that I was able to sometimes get myself up to prospect, to record, to door knock, was to have that ego inside of me where it was almost like this self-induced confidence where I had to convince myself I was great and I had to share that out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe it. Because I was in this phase where none of my friends believed it. I think you were the only person since day one that believed I was actually going to do something.
I thought you were crazy, but yeah, you're on
Yeah,
some.
yeah, exactly.
Well, that's faking it till you make it, right?
Yeah, and I think I think there's some importance to that, where you need to have some level of confidence that is maybe a little bit over the top when you're used to just being counted out, really not supported, and the only way that you can actually execute at a high level is to be able to convince yourself you're the shit pretty much, And that got me through my first 3 years. I can look back now and say that there was maybe some ways I could have handled my marketing and my communication better, but that got me to my first 6 figures and consecutive years of 6 figures by just having this internal dialogue with myself, convincing myself that there's something great inside of me. And I had to convince myself, and that came in the form of ego. Now, the next phase is probably the most important phase that I hope people learn from, which was phase 2020 to 2023.
Okay.
I was putting out all these videos, right? Wasn't getting any traction. No, didn't really know what it was.
Banger videos too.
No, incredible videos. Right? Go watch my YouTube channel. Filter by oldest, and you'll see what we're talking about. But I was putting out content, didn't really know where it was going to go. And I ended up joining EXP. That was the same time COVID hit. And I joined a brokerage where people could partner with you. I also had this unexpected event that happened, which was COVID, and everybody was stuck inside, and the only thing they could do was consume social media and learn how to build their business with social media. And I had all the content on social media. So where I'm going with this, which is a really critical part to my personal journey, is it was almost like everything came together at once, and my business and my life took off. Like that was the year I went from 300,000 to 3 million in 12 months.
So sick.
Everything blew up, right? And it was a really interesting time because then I went from being this locally known guy to this globally known guy that was getting all this stage time, that was getting all this attention because what I was achieving. But there was something very toxic about that. And the toxic side of that was that my income grew much faster than I matured. And what happened is I was so tainted by not having money for so long that I wanted to do whatever it took not to get back to that place. So it was a crazy 3 years where I was making money. I bought the car, I bought the house. On the outside on social media, it looked like everything was good. But when we go back to your income being a direct reflection of who you become, my income hit a plateau in 2023 because I had not matured to the level that my business did. So I was making money, but I was ruining every relationship that I was in. I was unhappy. I was unfulfilled. It was this vanity attention that I was getting, not from me, but what I was doing. And it was actually probably, ironically, the darkest time in my journey where you would assume if you told the childhood me what I was driving, where I was living, and what my bank account looked like, that you'd be the happiest person on the planet. And it was the most miserable I ever was because I did this all for family, ruined every relationship. I did this all to mature and prove to myself who I can become, and it consumed me. And I didn't know how to actually create internal happiness by the nature of who I've become and what I had. So it got to this crazy point in 2023 where everything fell apart. And I realized that I needed to become a different person if I wanted to get to the next level and actually be happy while doing it. And that's where 2024 came. And I decided I needed to take a full year of not having any financial goals for the first time in 7 years and say my only goal this year is to become a better man. So that's where I ended up joining the Tony Robbins Platinum Group. I went to weekly therapy. I did a lot of harsh internal conversations with myself, but also honest, genuine conversations with people like you and my parents and people that know me and care about me. And it was the most difficult but most rewarding year I've ever had. Even though my finances wouldn't show it this year compared to previous years, I can actually now look in the mirror and finally say that I'm proud of the man that I've become. I've never been able to do that in 7 years.
Yeah, that's very important.
Right? So I think that's something people need to be mindful of, is that you can have all those things that you've ever wanted, but if you're not working on yourself and you're not growing along with it, you're going to be miserable. Like more money and more influence or more attention or more power or whatever you get with income, notoriety, credibility, none of that is going to help if you're not happy yourself. And I think that's where a lot of relationships went wrong and other aspects of my life went wrong, where you can't make other people happy until you're actually happy first. And I needed to learn that the hard way. And I did. So this was a year where I went full tilt on me. And that's why I'm excited for what's about to come in 2025, knowing that now we have the skill set, but we can operate out of a place of blissful dissatisfaction, which is essentially being happy with where you're at, but also dissatisfied knowing you've got more to prove, right? That's the place that I always wanted to get, is happy and grateful for what I have today, but also striving for more, knowing you've got more left in the tank. And I was always not blissfully dissatisfied. I was wholeheartedly dissatisfied, you know? And that was, a lot of that came from that mentality of always wanting more. I think when you come from a place of lack in life, you don't want to go back. So where I went wrong is I got into this habit of always chasing the next thing. What's the next car? What's the bigger house? You have a great relationship. What else is out there for you? Like, you're always looking at what else, what new, what next, what bigger, what better, instead of auditing what you have and asking yourself, like, dude, when I look at relationships or anything else that's been important in my life, in my priority list, I have had everything that would have ticked off every box, but I never really audited it. So I just have this mentality of the next thing. Like, I didn't need the current vehicle that I had. I just was content with what I had previously. And I was like, well, what's next? I didn't need it. It was just this way that you've been conditioned to want more, want new, want better, want bigger. And that led to probably the most miserable position. But there's a lot of power in that, because now I can look back and realize what actually mattered and what does matter.
I've never heard that, the blissful dissatisfaction. I think that's very powerful, because, I think it's extremely powerful to be happy, but also unhappy with how certain things are, and then work towards making those things better, right? I kind of want to talk about overcoming change, because you had a lot of things there. You went from a local brokerage to EXP to COVID happening. Those are all major things that you need to, well, especially even changing from engineering to real estate. Yeah. I mean, these are crazy. And I guess what did that struggle look like, overcoming those challenges in the mindset aspect, where you're doing this new thing and then you're maybe getting traction doing it, like that, the local brokerage, and then you made the change, it's going well, and then like a pandemic, something that like you can't even predict happens, and it kind of kills your momentum in that thing. I guess how do you go about adapting to change when things aren't working, or they are working and you need to pivot?
I can look at this looking at the different phases of the journey that I've gone on, and where I did it right and where I did it wrong. And I did it ironically right in the beginning and wrong as time went on. And I'll get to that, because that's kind of the funny part about this.
That's the important part.
It's very important, right? Which is, in the beginning, when I went from engineering to real estate, I did it out of a place of purpose. I realized that what I was doing wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go. So change was inevitable. It was the only way for that to happen. When I look at the next change, which was after the first 3 years going to EXP, same thing, right? It was that conversation, that internal dialogue of like, where do you want to go in life? What do you actually want to achieve? What is your why? What is your purpose? And by being geographically restricted at a traditional brokerage, chasing the next deal wasn't going to give me the leverage I wanted to lead to the lifestyle of what I wanted to create, what I set out to do in the beginning. So that change, while daunting, was something I could always revert to based on vision board, your why, your purpose, the typical cliche aspects of why you got started. Where I went wrong was the change when things started to work out. And this is an important lesson for people, because when things actually start to come together, that's when your judgment can become clouded because of success, because of external factors, because you're now surrounded by more cheerleaders, more people giving you props, things are coming together. And I lost sight of the purpose. I was so consumed by not losing what I had that I forgot why I was even doing it. And that was a very dangerous position, because there's validity to both. But it's important to, again, always revert back to why you're doing it, right? If I look at the business side of things, I was doing this to create impact, to create, to be able to leverage my skill sets to make a positive influence on other people. But then it got to the point where I was just being consistent to be consistent, because I didn't want it to go away. And I put out content that wasn't actually my best. Stuff that I wasn't proud of, that I knew I could have done better, but I just didn't want to lose what I had. I look at relationships. I veered completely off track, ended up dating people that, if you looked at what I want out of life, missed many critical boxes. But it was new, it was fresh, it was different. I lost sight of the why, the purpose of what I actually wanted. So change is important to be aware of, but how you handle change is critical, because whenever things are daunting, whenever things are overwhelming, you have to always go back to purpose and remind yourself why you're doing it. And we talked about this on some of the Atlas calls before. The only reason why you quit is if you forget why you got started, right? Nobody gets their real estate license after all that effort and doing those bullshit tests. You don't learn anything. Yeah. And say, well, I guess this sucks. I'm going to give it a shot for 4 months, and if it doesn't work out, we're back to the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody says that. They're like fired up. They're pumped. They're ready to change their life. They're ready to be the one to change their family's life. Where did that drive go? That's why people give up. That's why people struggle with change, because and this is probably the most critical aspect of change. If I was to tell one person who's struggling with change how to overcome it, it's to stop fabricating the what ifs or the potential situations that may not ever happen in their mind. That's what happens. I look at, for example, the transition from corporate world to real estate. Why people would fear that change is they're fabricating all these false narratives in their head of saying, what if I don't succeed? What if I don't get paid within 6 months? What if I'm not capable? All of those what ifs that you're fabricating in your mind may not and likely will not actually happen. So you're jacking up your perspective entirely for something that's unreal. Whereas when I got into real estate, my perspective was, I'm going to make this work come hell or high water. It's my only option. There's no plan B. I had no problems adjusting to that change. Same thing when it came to EXP. New brokerage, people are talking shit about it. It's not big in this city. It's all about recruiting. You hear all of it. And for me, I had clarity on my purpose, what it was going to do to change other people's lives, which thankfully worked out. And I never had a shadow of a doubt adapting to that change, because the only thing that I fabricated in my mind is the best case scenario. But so many people struggle with change because they're fabricating the worst case scenario in their mind to the point where they've actually convinced themselves it's probably going to happen, right? You and I looked at that Theo Vaughn episode with Tony Robbins,
yeah,
right? And he did that exercise where it's like, look at everything that's brown in the room,
right? Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And look at everything that's brown in the room, and then close your eyes for a second and tell me everything that's red,
yeah,
right? And you can't do it. And that's because what you focus on expands. So when all these people are adapting to change or going through change, and all that they're focused on is the worst case scenario, or if things don't work out, or what happens if, guess what's probably going to happen? All of that shit you're worried about. Whereas when I was going through change, all that I focused on is when this works out, it's going to be epic. So that's all I consumed my thoughts with. And that's exactly what happened.
I think that's a muscle that, I don't have yet. That's that incredible self-talk of the what if this is great, instead of I'm going to fail again, or like you said, I'm in my own head with that all the time. I'm curious too, because you mentioned your why, and you lost kind of the sight of your why, and you got consumed in just doing the work. And I still feel that's something we're still dealing with today. How do you reel it back and be like, okay, I gotta go back on why I'm doing this? Like, what is there a tipping point where you say, okay, like this isn't working. Why am I doing this? Like, how do you reset, I guess?
I think it's when you wake up and you're miserable.
Fair.
Like, and that's why I went on that trip to India.
Yeah.
Right. When I recently just got back from Abu Dhabi in India, for anybody that doesn't know. And it was an entire trip based on spirituality and the power of happiness. I was not previously a very spiritual guy, but I realized that I needed to make a change, and I needed to go deep within to find out why I'm feeling this way. I'm waking up in a 7,000 square foot house on the lake, driving my dream vehicle unhappy. Why? My family is 2 minutes down the road. I'm in business with my best friend. What's up? And once you start feeling that way, where you feel like you're losing sight of why you're doing this, and you wake up and you're not passionate and excited, you have to go look within. But I've done that so often that I needed an external environment to help me look at things through a different lens. Mm-hmm. So you can only do what you can with what you have, right? So if you're sitting there and you've tried to work on yourself, you can only do that so much until your skill set becomes the capacity at which you can change. You can only change yourself so much based on the knowledge and tools and skills you have. I maxed out what I was personally capable of with the knowledge, tools, and skills that I had. So I had to go to somebody in a different environment, an ecosystem, where they're at a completely different level with this stuff to give me eye-opening perspectives. And I came back and it felt like this radical change where I got complete clarity as to what I actually want out of life. I feel way more calm and collected throughout the day. I'm waking up reminding myself why I'm actually doing this, where we're going, and what we are capable of. And it took 14 days in a completely different country, surrounded by people where it was immersion. Like, that's why I encourage people coaching and retreats and investing into their business to put yourself in a different environment. Because when I'm sitting here in the studio, it's conducive to me. Okay, I'm thinking, I'm kind of like reflecting, back to work. Back to, you're always in this same space.
Keeps sucking you back in, hey?
Sucks you back in. So I needed to change my environment. And I think for anybody that's sitting here today, and maybe you feel like you've jacked up the last couple of years, or maybe you're on the wrong path, and maybe you're like me, who is from the outside successful by most people's standards, but unhappy and unfulfilled. Sometimes you got to go put yourself in an ecosystem or an environment that's radically different than what you're familiar with.
I have probably the most important question for today's episode. Did you come back with clarity saying you have to get Pat a new truck?
Right.
I think that would make you super happy.
Yeah, it would be fulfilling one day.
Yeah. What do you think was the biggest takeaway from that trip? I'm curious because you've said a lot of things about the trip off camera, just like pivotal, handling stress, finding clarity and stuff like that. But was there like a key moment that you can go back to that you'd be like, that was like the game changer of those 14 days?
100%. Guilt. I have struggled with guilt for multiple years, to the point where it was all consuming. I would wake up and I would think about it. I would go to bed thinking about it. It was on my mind constantly, because during that phase of growth where I tarnished relationships and I made mistakes, I can reflect on that today and realize that's not the man that I know that I am. That's not who I want to be perceived as. And it weighed so heavy on me, where I had this unwavering feeling of guilt every day. It was all I could think about, because I knew if the man I am today went back to those situations, none of it would have happened. And that was really hard to deal with. And I quite frankly didn't know how to deal with it. I went to therapy for fucking 8 months and it didn't help me with shit. It didn't help me with it. But Mo Godat, one of the speakers at the Platinum Experience, you know, what he said, and Sister Shivani, who is a big influence over in India, two different things. What Mo said is that the feeling of guilt is because you've changed, and you know that if you would go back to that same situation, you would have done it differently. So when you feel guilt, what you need to do is you need to view guilt as growth. If you were still that same person who would have did that at that same time, you wouldn't feel guilt. And what you need to understand, and what I had to understand, is that you handle situations in the moment with the skills and knowledge you have at that time. And that's what I had to realize, is that I made all those mistakes in the past based on the skills and knowledge I had at that time. I now know better. I've now grown so much to the point where I wouldn't even consider going down some of those avenues, but I've changed and I've grown and I've matured. But that's where that feeling of guilt was. And I was always looking at guilt as shame, and I can't go back and I can't change it, which is true, but it's also because I've grown. And then also, I looked at some of the stuff Sister Shivani shared, and she was talking about the fact that you have complete control over your emotions and how you allow it to affect your life. And you and I talked about this, about being loyal to beliefs that are not loyal to you.
Yes.
And that's what I struggled with. I struggled with this feeling of grief and this feeling of guilt so much that I started to label myself and believe that I was a bad man. And that's not a belief that's loyal to you changing, you growing, you impacting other people, and you becoming somebody that adds positive change to the world. So I had to stop being loyal to these beliefs that I falsely convinced myself of because I didn't have the tools to think any different. But at the end of the day, we're in control of our emotions, whether you want to associate a positive or a negative to any situation. So that's one of the things that really hit me hard, is realizing that when you do something wrong, let's say you make a mistake, the act of making that mistake does not make you feel guilt. You decide yourself to associate guilt with what you did.
Okay.
You can completely change that narrative and make a conscious decision to apply a different belief to that. That was a lesson. That was a growth opportunity. That was something I learned from. That was something I grew from. It's nothing can happen that inherently automatically makes you feel an emotion. You are the only one that has the ability to create or destroy a feeling in yourself. And I was being loyal to feelings that were not positive in myself that I created. And I had to change the emotions. And I had to change the lens at which I viewed those experiences through, so that I could understand that this is all part of my journey, that, like we're doing now, I can hopefully share with somebody to realize, if you're feeling this, guess what? You're not alone. Mm-hmm. But we are the creators of these emotions, and I was being a victim of the own emotions that I created myself. Nobody else put those emotions on me.
You got to be young and dumb to be old and wise, as they say, right?
Yeah.
Where it's exactly that. You handled situations where not in a million years you'd handle it now, knowing what you know. You're dealing with that now. A young Mike going through the same thing, how would he have handled it? Because I know you prioritize mindset now, Tony Robbins, you're constantly learning, you're pushing yourself to learn more. What were the early days of mindset like and growth?
Well, the thing is that in the beginning, the only thing you usually think about is survival. And that's how it was in the beginning. So for me, in my first couple of years of real estate, it was just, how could I put food on the table and not go broke? And it's not even lose it all. I didn't have it all. So all that I woke up and did is think, what can I do to execute today? And that's where I think a lot of agents go wrong, is that they let their ego get in the way. They're not willing to do the activities that they know they need to do because they think that maybe it's below them. Like, you look at door knocking, for example, that's not a sexy activity. That's
no,
yeah, unfortunately not. Right? At least not for me, this like guy that was out of shape in a suit. Yeah. I wasn't looking too hot, sweating my ass off out there. Dude, I tripped on driveways.
Oh my God.
Like, I'll never forget one time.
Dogs chasing, yeah.
Dude, I knocked on a door. It was in the winter, and all the driveways were frozen out here in Calgary. And they didn't even shut the door yet. And I'm like walking down their driveway, like full garage sale carnage, dude. I fell, and it was like the legs in the air, flyers all over the driveway. And I look back at them, and then they slowly shut the door. But that was like such a humbling moment of where I just like gathered all my stuff up again, and it's like, all right, back to it next door.
Did you go next door?
I went to the next door. Yeah. Now those are the funny, but those are like, that's what builds character. And
absolutely.
I will, dude, when I have kids, I'm making them fucking door knock.
Nothing builds character like wiping out on a driveway in front of someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, flyers everywhere.
Yeah. Well,
You can't just leave because your face is all over them.
yeah, exactly. Facts. Well, and I think, there's a lot of importance to that journey. When it comes to personal growth, I always tell people that the two best, I guess, journeys that I went on for growth was door knocking and YouTube.
Okay.
Door knocking.
Very different. Yeah.
Very different. You have to get outside of your comfort zone with other people. So that was one critical delineation, is that you have to confront other people. You have no idea what's on the other side of that door. Could be dogs, right? Could be like, who knows what?
Who knows what?
And that was something that helped me really understand the fear of the unknown, because it was 100 times you're facing the unknown a day. And you have to be able to learn how to think on your feet, because people are going to hit you with objections and shit that you've never heard before. And so my communication skills from door knocking and my confidence from door knocking was a beautiful journey. Then I had YouTube, and that's where a lot of people are fearful of the camera. Well, now it's not fear in front of other people, it's fear by yourself. How other people are going to perceive you, because when you're door knocking, you can see the other person and how they react. With YouTube and content, you have no idea how people are going to react on the other side when it goes to the world. And now it's a completely different journey that you have to go on. But I find those journeys allow you to become much more confident in your ability to speak, because you have to learn how to deliver a clear, concise message, and you have to actually know what you're talking about. So when people are looking to grow, there's nothing that grew me aside from this year of personal development more than the early days of door knocking to get confidence, and then the long-term journey of YouTube to be able to expand who I've become and the ability to influence and provide value.
I don't know if you know this, but I did do some door knocking. I think I was doing door-to-door sales for security systems.
Yeah.
I was so bad, Mike. I think I might have sold 2 in 2 months. I was just knocking doors, but it was just like I was scared.
Yeah.
It was just I could get over the objections, but like if someone didn't want to buy it, I was like, all right, sounds good. Like, yeah, don't put this in a sales training. I can't do it. I want to finish up by talking about goals, because I think this is super important about growth and being the best version of yourself, is setting yourself up to who you want to be and setting that goal. But we've all set goals. We've all messed it up, never achieved it. And I think the big thing that people miss are the little habits that you need to create to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
And also, I think people set their goals way too high. And especially coming in the new year, they're going to say, I want to make $1 billion this year. It's like, okay, sure. I think Tony Robbins says this too. What does he say? He says the one goal. Don't overestimate what you can get done in a year.
Oh yeah, it's people overestimate what they can get done in a year, but underestimate what they can get done in a decade.
Perfect. So I guess, what do you think are the most important habits that someone can have to achieve their goals? And I know that's kind of very vague.
It's right here for a reason.
Perfect.
Let's talk about it. This is very critical, because we kicked this off by talking about the importance that you don't achieve your goals, you achieve your habits or your standards, if you will. And that's very true. You can say you want to make whatever amount of money, but if you don't operate that way, like, this is what I always encourage people to think about. And it's a really funny concept, right? I talked about this on a separate video today, where I ask any of the viewers, you, anybody that's listening, is picture this. Your friend just got their real estate license, and you need to tell them what they should do today.
Okay.
Here's what you're going to tell them. You're going to tell them you need to prospect, You need to generate leads. You have to talk to people. You have to time block, and you have to follow up, and you have to make sure to use a CRM. That's what you're going to tell Sarah Smith or John Anderson that just got their license what they should do.
I believe in both of you, by the way.
Facts, right? The funniest part is the way the advice you would give to somebody is always the advice you need to give to yourself.
I think that's the easiest advice to give too, right? Because it's so easy to give advice, but then when you're going through the same thing, you're like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And that's why having core values and standards are important.
Okay.
Because it's as simple as it gets. Like, real estate is a very simple business. It's not easy. It's simple. You have to get clients, service clients, and nurture clients. Handful of ways to do each of those. Pick your poison. But we, by default, really decide to make this a difficult journey by confusing ourselves. And I want to talk about, before getting into these core values, because I think these core values are the perfect way to wrap this up. Okay. We need to address one of the elephants in the room when it comes to personal growth and what gets in people's way. Perfectionism. Not techie. Lazy. What are all these things? These are labels people have put on themselves. So let's talk about that for a second. If perfectionism is the worst one.
Kills you.
Kills you. Why does it kill you? It kills you because you have labeled yourself as something. And as soon as you label yourself as something, you now forever have an excuse as to why you can't do something. So if you tell yourself, you fully convince yourself you are a perfectionist, then whenever it comes time to putting out that video, guess what? You don't have to, because you're a perfectionist. Whenever it comes time to, role play that script and actually introduce it into the world and use it, guess what? It's not ready yet because you're a perfectionist. Oh, techie, right? Can't use my CRM. Why? Because I've labeled myself, I am not techie, right? You and I have talked about this, about different types of emotions, right? People need to realize that this is not a binary thing. Anxiety, depression, perfectionism, all of these things are on a continuum scale. Mm-hmm. Like if we look at, for example, perfectionism, anxiety, we've got a label and an emotion. It's not I am anxious. It's not I am a perfectionist. It's on a scale of 1 to 10. How anxious are you and how perfect does it need to be?
I like that. Yep.
There's no because here's what I tell people all the time. I can look at, if there's a perfectionist watching right now, I encourage you, or listening, I encourage you to send me anything you think is perfect, and I guarantee I can tear holes in it.
You said that in our meeting yesterday, and I was like, the deeper you look into something, the more flaws you're gonna. It's like painting a wall. You're gonna find something bad.
Mona Lisa, right?
Yeah.
You could poke a ton of different things that's wrong with it, because people, you might think it's perfect, but from everybody else's perspective, they're all looking at it through a different lens. It's never going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. But by giving yourself a label of I am this is the worst thing you could ever do, because you're forever giving yourself a scapegoat as to why you can't do something. So let's say somebody says they're not techie, right? It shouldn't be I am not techie. That's not what you should convince yourself or label yourself as. You can instead say, I'm not that good at technology, but I'm working to get better. How about that? Now there's room for progress. There's an admission to the fact that you're not that good yet, but there's an acknowledgement that you can change and get better.
Yeah, there's not like a staple that's like hindering you to do something, right?
The second you label yourself, you are eliminating your chance of success every single time. So we need to address that first, because there's so many people that have labeled themselves as all this shit that is going to forever be an excuse as to why they can't do something.
I'm too handsome.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. Yeah. So,
sorry, I had to.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're my handsome co-host.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with that.
Perfect.
Which is core values. I have this here in front of me. I have it on the back of my t-shirts. I have it on my desktop. I have it in videos. I have it everywhere, because these are the standards that I know that as long as I revert to this as often as possible, it will be a guiding light to guarantee I'm going in the right direction. And what I encourage people to understand when listening to this is that it's not that I'm perfect at this all the time. Every single day you're course correcting. Every single day I can look at these and be like, I was at 40% on that one, but I was an 80% on this one. But by having standards and actually have them like mapped out visually, printed off, it's a reminder of what good looks like and what will keep you on track to progress. So let's look at these. We'll run them off and explain what they mean. Because for anybody that's coming in the new year, I guarantee if you follow these religiously, you will radically change your standards and habits. Consistency trumps intensity. So many people will hear of a new strategy like YouTube. They'll get all excited about it. They'll see Suman making $5 million in 3 years, or they'll see Noah doing 6 figures a month from TikTok. And they'll say, well, if he did it with 2 videos a week, I'm going to do 5 videos a week. But the problem with that is that you burn out. And what I've noticed by every successful person is they've been relentlessly consistent for an extended period of time. They're not sprinting, they're jogging the whole way. Done is better than perfect. Making sure that, again, eliminating that excuse of perfectionism, that something that's out there, a piece of content that's out there, is doing a heck of a lot more for your business than something that's sitting in Google Drive. The easiest way to fail or to stay where you are is to do nothing. At least if you do something, albeit imperfect, it guarantees you're at least in a better chance or a better position than you were when you did nothing. So if you want to guarantee your business grows, do something, even though it's not perfect. Leadership through action. That goes back to the analogy I shared with you about if you were to coach a friend and tell them what to do, what would you do? Okay, guess what? It's probably what you should be doing yourself. Lead by example. You want other people to look at you as a role model and say, hey, they actually practice what they preach. That's somebody I want to aspire to be like. Create a positive impact, making sure that you're always doing the right thing. This is right now more than ever. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's commission breath, right? And commission breath is you're broke, you're struggling to do deals. Your client finds a property that they like and they're considering writing an offer on. You know it's not the right property for them, but you convince them to write the offer because you need commission today.
No.
Happens constantly.
Wow.
Because you're sitting there and you're like, I've got 1 of 2 options. I can get this $10,000 commission check, or I can struggle to put food on the table this month. It's pretty enticing. But what you realize is that if you're always putting yourself first and you're not creating a positive impact on your clients, you are going to ruin the future of your business forever. So don't do that short-term instant gratification because you're looking at what I get today. Mm-hmm. You have to look at what that does for the relationship long-term. Goes into delayed gratification. Going into the next year. If you extend the time horizon for which you're expecting tangible results, you're guaranteed to win. So what happens is people try shit. If you try something, I know you're cooked. I know you're going to fail. Because when you're trying something, you've automatically, subconsciously convinced yourself, I'm going to do this for this window of time, and if it doesn't work out, I'm trying something else. Because you're trying it. When I'm going something, right, I'm embarking on short-form content, I'm not trying it, I'm doing it. And I'm going to do it until it works out. So when you look at anybody that's been successful on content, they don't say, I'm going to try YouTube. Suman said, I'm going to do it until it works out. I'm doing it forever, right? If you can't do it for a lifetime, don't do it for a day. You need to be fully committed. But so many people put these unrealistic, false expectations on themselves because some unicorn did it in 3 months, and now they think if they don't do it in 3 months that they're not cut out for it. One of the biggest things that I've ever learned in real estate is that it's not that a platform doesn't work, it's that you don't work. If YouTube isn't working out for you, it's not that YouTube doesn't work out. You're not doing the work to make it work out. If TikTok's not working out, it's not because the platform doesn't work. You're not doing what it takes to make it work. Right? And I can even say that, right? Like my TikTok's not the hottest thing on the hot to trot, but I'm out there doing it. My YouTube channel, on the other hand, is where I pour my heart and my soul. It's working out because I'm making the platform work out. So when people are pointing the finger at a platform, it's not that the algorithm's like out to get you. Your content just sucks. And that's what we have to understand. Playing to win. This is a big one, right? And this is what I was really doing in that first 3 years and what I'm really doing going forward in 2025. And I got off track for a bit. If you're playing to participate, you're going to get destroyed. In business and entrepreneurship, you have to play to win. There's a lot of people playing just to partake, right? Like they just want to show up. They want to be a part of the industry. And if that's what people actually want, that's okay. But there's people I know that have convinced themselves that they're killers, they're winners, they're motivated, they're driven, they're sharks. And they're just out here dabbling. They're being casual about it. Like that's where I had to convince myself and have that sense of false ego in the beginning because I was playing to win. I knew what I was capable of and everybody else was doubting me. So that's a really critical component. Ask yourself, is the way that you're showing up playing to win or playing just to participate? Self-integrity, discipline, right? Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. So self-integrity is being able to bet on yourself, having confidence in yourself. That stems from following through with the commitments you make to yourself. A lot of agents are going to write out their new goals in January. And if I hook them up to a lie detector test and ask them, do you actually think you're going to do this? It would go off the Richter scale with a huge no. They don't even believe it themselves. Why? Because they continue to not follow through with the commitments they make to themselves, right? You and I hear this all the time. I'm going to launch my YouTube channel on Monday. We get on Friday's call. Guess what they didn't do? Launch their YouTube channel. Doesn't hurt me. Doesn't hurt you, right? If somebody doesn't do something, it only hurts them and their family and all those people they say they're doing this for. So no matter how big, how small, follow through when you say you're going to do something. And when you do that, you get confidence that when you say you're going to do something else, you actually know you're going to do it. That's what gives confidence, is you saying you're going to do something, you crush it, and you do that again and again and again and again. Right? When I said it was door knocking and I did it over and over and over, I was confident because every time I said I was going to do something, I actually did it. That's one thing that's really critical. And the last one is the one thing. This is the one thing that's probably one of the most important things coming into the new year, which is the man who chases two rabbits catches none. And people feel overwhelmed and distracted because they're trying to do a bunch of stuff, but they end up being mediocre or terrible at a bunch of things. You need to audit where your holes in your bucket are. Mine are different from yours, are different from whoever's listening right now. And what happens is, maybe I put out some tip and I say, like, this is something people should be doing now. Well, if social media isn't the one thing right now for you that is the critical needle-moving driver of your business, maybe it's your CRM. Ignore what I just said, right? You need to be self-aware enough to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling with organization. Clients are falling through the cracks because I'm not following up. My one thing right now is my CRM. For the next quarter, the only thing you should be consuming on content, on books, from webinars, seminars, events, is anything related to your CRM. And master it. Then move on to the next thing. People will be blown away by the amount of progress they'll make if they channel all of their energy, attention, and focus into one thing, not a whole slew of things. And those are the core values. And so for me, I keep these on deck at all times Because if I feel like I'm having a day that's not progressive or productive, I just look at this and say, which one am I not following through with? Because as long as I hit these at the highest capacity that I can, there's no way I'm not going to make progress in my business. And that's what people need to know going into this new year, is that your habits and your standards are going to be the determining factor of whether or not you hit your goals.
How many, is there 10 of them?
9.
9 of them? I think maybe we should challenge the listeners and the viewers a little bit. Instead of setting your goals, finish this year by setting your core values. Because I think whatever you do want to achieve next year is going to happen by those habits.
Yeah, both are important. And I encourage people, again, drop a comment below and let us know what core value resonated with you the most, right? Which one are you struggling with, or which one do you know you need to get better at? Because for me, this is a never-ending thing. And I want people to understand that, is that all those people you look up to, right? I'm at a certain position right now. I look up to people that are way further ahead of me. One of the things I've realized on this journey of personal growth is every single person that you look up to is dealing with the same shit you are. They just have better tools, better skills, and better resources to handle and address it quicker.
Fair.
Yeah.
How do you want to end it?
Not like that.
No. I'm trying to figure out which one resonates the most with me out of those 9.
Self-integrity.
Okay.
You doubt yourself.
All the time.
But again, I think that's a perfect way to pull this together. Is the only way to actually make change is, like I did and like you've done, is to be honest with yourself. The only way I would have been able to make all these changes this year and address all the things that have been holding me back, all the things that have been leading me astray, is to be able to look within and say, hey, this is actually how I'm showing up. This is who I am. This is what I'm struggling with. And so many people don't want to have that difficult conversation or get called out by friends and loved ones and partners to be able to say, you know what, you're right. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you, not just cheerleaders, but people that want you to succeed, want you to win, want you to be happy, and can look you in the eye and say, hey, I know you can show up better in this way.
I think it's important to be that person to other people too, as rough as it is sometimes too, right?
100%.
Like, I've been trying to lose weight, and then people are like, oh, you don't have to lose weight. It's like, you should be telling me the other thing. Like, you should be motivating me to go to there's like the harsh thing to it, but you have to be honest with yourself and what you want to achieve.
The only time it offends you is if you know it's true.
That's very true.
Because if you were fully convinced that it's not true, it wouldn't bother you in the slightest.
Yeah. So self-integrity.
Self-integrity. And again, I'd love to hear from you, from anybody in the comments. Let us know what you're struggling with, or let us know, again, if there's anything that you're struggling with on your personal journey that we can do future episodes on or address it and make sure that we help you get over the hump. Because again, I've been through the ringer and back. And I'm sure it's not going to be the last time, because as you continue to grow and go to new phases of life, you end up dealing with different things. And one of the things that is going to be something you're going to deal with constantly are test days, because you're going to start to operate on these core values, and there's going to be days where every single thing you touch goes to shit. Nothing goes right. Nothing goes your way, right? You and I have had plenty of those, but they're critical. They're necessary. They're important. There's a lot of beauty in them. And we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, because the next episode is entirely on that. How to fall in love with the test days, the days that make you feel like you should give up, the days that make you question why you got started, the days that make you feel like you're not cut out for it, and the days that make you feel like, again, maybe your personal journey is not cut out for it. But I've realized through my own journey is that those are the days that build you into the type of person that will help you get to that next level. So if you fall in love with them, that's going to be one of the catalysts to taking your business to the next level. So final words, brother?
I can't wait for it, to be honest.
Me too. Well, we've had a ton of them. Again, Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode where we give you the tactical blueprint to fall in love with test days.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.